1964. What a fantastic year. I appeared. The Beatles, they dominated the charts all over the world. And Volvo gave us one of the world's greatest all-time cars. Car in question is the Volvo Amazon. Now, the Amazon come in a few different flavours. You had the two-door, the four-door, or the estate car, and two engine sizes, a 1.6, which was called the B16, and a 1.8, the B18. I found one that's got the sweet spot. It's got a B18 engine, 4-speed. However, it's not the desirable two-door version, it's the less desirable four-door version. Now, Brian, the seller, has been really truthful with me. He lives up in Washington State, and he says that the car, I can't drive it because the clutch doesn't work and the brakes are really too old and too iffy. He does say that the car runs, which is good, so I'm not expecting to get there and take the car for a test drive. I just want to make sure it's nice and solid and hasn't got any holes in it. And if it's what I want, then there could be treasure in this Amazon. Hey! How you doing? You Brian?
Yeah, Mike.
Brian, how you doing?
Great.
Very nice to meet you.
Out.
Pleasure, and it's great you got it running.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it started for you.
That is fantastic. Oh, it runs.
It runs.
All right, well, do you mind turning it off and we can turn this off and we can have a chat about it? No signs of accident damage. It looks like it's all original, actually. There's been some animals living under here at some point.
You get that in barns, I think.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. I'll bet you do. Inside, the seats are a little bit beaten up. The dashboard's a little bit funky. Lovely big original Volvo steering wheel. And there's no carpets. I'll tell you what is good, right?
What's
it's
that?
the stuff that you can see. It's the things like the trim down the side, the trim around the glass, door handles, the headlamp beauty rings, that grille at the front and rear bumper. They are in really good condition. And the fact that this is a four-door means that it's a car that you can share, isn't it?
Family car, yep.
It's a proper family car. Yeah, I've got a funny feeling with a good steam clean, this car hasn't got a dot of rust on it. Right, would you mind if I just had sort of 5 minutes to my own?
Not at all.
Just to get it in my head and to think about it, and then we'll have a catch-up chat.
Okay.
Top man.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. What a car. It's just the amount of work that needs to be done. Obviously, the suspension. Yeah, look at it. It bounces up and down too many times on a push. Brian's only asking $4,000, around £3,000 for it. OK then, Brian.
What do you think?
You want just $4,000 for it, didn't you? Would you take $3.5 grand for it?
Yeah, I think you'll do right by it, so...
Yeah? Top man.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Just bought myself a Volvo Amazon. Love it. Sorry to disturb you.
Yo!
But I have brought you a gift.
Huh? It's an Amazon. Joe, if I'd have known you were bringing an Amazon in, I'd have rolled out the red carpet, stuck some fireworks out, opened up a bottle of champagne. I've even had little guys in red tunics with massive trumpets, little flags on the end. It's a Volvo Amazon.
I know. And it's our Volvo Amazon. Why not just give me a hug instead, eh?
Oh, I will. I will.
How good is that? So this is our Volvo 122 Amazon.
What does it drive like?
Right, well, these drive amazingly. I mean, they use these in historic rally, and it's got such a huge rally pedigree. They drive fantastic. They're so much fun.
Yeah,
They've got that great engine.
But what does she drive like?
I couldn't tell you. But I would imagine it's going to be all right. I mean, the clutch doesn't work. The brake's going to be dodgy. It runs, but I've never driven it.
You've never driven this car?
No, it fires up OK. Engine looks good. Let's have a look. It's got that legendary Volvo B18 engine.
I can't hear you.
I know, it's so lovely. You can see it runs, and wait, look. So the engine's got some strength. It does run. Clearly, it needs a little bit of work, but I know that these engines are so simple to work on. The carbs need doing. You can see it's nice and solid. Someone's been living underneath in the past, you know.
This is a Volvo. It's the very essence of safe, dependable driving. But back in the day, the advertising slogan for this car was, drive it like you hate it. And this is unbelievable, get this. It was also cheaper than a psychiatrist. When you consider today's modern advertising standards, I think that'd be pretty much frowned upon. But hey, This was the 1960s. Volvo hadn't yet established their reputation for safety. Yeah, they were seen as reliable cars, but it was more about ecologically friendly. You see, the Amazon, it represented fun, power and pace, and what Mike's done is inadvertently he's got one of my all-time favourite cars. Now, the thing is, it runs, but unfortunately it doesn't drive. Mike tells me there's a problem with the clutch, which on a car like this should be relatively straightforward. Now, it's made up of only a handful of components, one of which is this master cylinder, which unfortunately is absolutely bone dry. There's no way that's going to be working. Now, the master cylinder is effectively a cylinder with a piston inside it. So when you push the pedal, it moves the piston and forces fluid down this pipe, which is also bust. It's got a big kink in it. Anyway, the fluid goes down the pipe to a second cylinder called a slave cylinder, which works in the same way. It has a piston inside that operates the clutch. I mean, it really is entry-level basic hydraulics. Now, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to swap these three items out. These parts are consumable and need to be changed at intervals anyway. They're also affordable at just over $100 for both master and slave cylinders. That's around 75 quid, and it's a nice basic spanner job that can be tackled at home. The slave cylinder needs to be tackled from the underside. The slave cylinder is simply mounted to the transmission with 2 bolts. An easy working space under the Volvo. These 2 cylinders will fix the clutch issue Mike felt. Now, it's quite handy, this bell housing, someone's drilled a hole in it, and I can see the clutch plate inside actually looks quite good, plenty of meat on it. My gut feeling is that's going to be okay. Now, inside this master cylinder, there's a very basic piston. Now, this end here is attached to the clutch pedal, so when you push the pedal, all it does is move that piston and forces brake fluid out of here. Now, it goes down that wiggly pipe, which is still in the car. That pipe joins onto the slave cylinder, and the slave cylinder does essentially the same thing. Although it's not driven by the pedal, it's solely driven by the fluid. It moves that piston in here, that moves this rod. Now, looking at it, it's in pretty bad shape. In fact, if I open it up, yeah, I mean, that is completely gummed up. Now, swapping it out is very, very simple. It's held in by only 2 bolts. New parts are off the shelf nowadays. They're easy to get hold of, even for old cars like this. Now, Mike didn't get me a replacement hardline, but it's not a disaster because making hydraulic hardlines is actually easier than you think. You just need some basic tools. Pipe cutter, a little hand bender tool to make the radiuses all nice, and then a flaring tool. Now, the good news is I've got the old hardline, so all I need to do is copy this shape using it as a template, minus the kink. Now, using this 1/4-inch zinc-coated mild steel, I first of all want to drop a little curve in it. Before I bend the other end, I need to keep it straight so it fits within my flaring tool, so I'm just going to cut. Now that this end's done, use the flaring tool. Make sure you put your fitting on. Just drop this inside. And then on this tool, it's a 2-stage process. So I'm using 1/4-inch pipe. Stage 1. That opens the pipe out, creates a swaged flare. And then step 2, this one, bellies it in and creates a kind of a pocket so that when I tighten it up, it all locks together. And it really is as simple as that. Perfect. Now all I need to do is put that last bend in. And that's it. Hydraulic connections often don't have gaskets or seals. They're just metal on metal. These rely on the pressure of the flange being pushed into a cone shape to make the seal. While in the air, I'm attaching the slave cylinder end of the pipe. A little tip, fix the hard line first before fixing the master cylinder to the bulkhead. So the master cylinder goes back in the same place. And get this, for the whole job, so far I've only used 3 spanners and a pair of pliers. And then fill it with fresh fluid. And then bleed it. Using a compressor-fed bleed tool makes easy work of it, as opposed to having a mate stamping on the pedal. And remember, keep the reservoir topped up whilst bleeding. You don't want to draw air into the system, otherwise you'll have to do it all over again. Yeah, that's a nice solid clutch pedal. You kind of get a bit of experience on how it should feel. And I reckon the clutch faults were down to a number of things. Firstly, a lack of fluid, then the kink in the hose, and then that gummed up slave cylinder. And swapping it out for new parts means we can finally get this car on the road, which also means Mike actually gets to drive the Amazon.
A perfect combination of handling and power makes this Swede something special. Unfortunately, ours didn't run, but now that Ant has the car back on the road
Slow down.
and has revitalised the suspension, we can stop as well as go. This car is the real deal.
Whew.
There's nothing artificial about this Swedener. That gag.
Tap me on the shoulder, go on. Go on. Go on. Yeah.
I got this car for just $3,500. Clutch cylinders, hardline and fluid at 136. Front and rear suspension rebuild was $400. New starter motor, $80. Front and rear brakes rebuilt for $165. This gives us a total of $4,281, which is around £3,200, and all done in 28 man-hours.
It's not bad, is it? 54 years old.
Do you know what? Yeah, you're right. I know it takes hard work to...
Not you, the car.
Oh, you mean the car? Do you know, Volvo gave this car an 11-year life cycle, and here it is 54 years later. It looks like it's just rolled out the showroom. Absolutely incredible job.
Check this out, the inside. It's one of those jobs you get to the last day, it's late at night, and I had to go back in the workshop, throw some new carpets in, and give it all a spruce up.
And it's not until you get behind the wheel of one of these, you may think that you look like a university professor on his way to give a lecture.
It's a bit rude.
Well, it does look like that, doesn't it? But I know, with the way these cars handle, and that B18 engine, it's got a few tricks up its sleeve.
You haven't driven this yet, have you?
Nope, and I'm so excited.
Well, what are you waiting for?
My very first drive of the Volvo 122 Amazon.
I can't think of another scenario where you've given me a car to fix that you haven't driven.
This is one of the first cars that I've not driven on Wheeler Dealers.
From the outside, this looks like a pretty average car. Kind of take your kids to the shop, very, very low key. But it turns out underneath, it's an international rally car.
And if you went to Volvo and looked at their trophy cabinet, well, it put most football teams to shame because this thing had rally wins all over the world. Our Volvo is now finished and it looks absolutely amazing. And I've had this young lady turn up to come and see it. This is her sister, Carolina, and that's the Volvo they arrived in, another 122. But like all women, they like to buy things in pairs. So her sister, Natalie, has been out for a test drive in my Volvo, and let's see what she makes of it. Lovely. So, what did you think?
I love it.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah, it drives really nice. Why do you need another one?
This is my favorite car, Volvo Amazon. Need one in black, need one in red.
Really? I advertised it out there on the internet for $7,000. I've had lots of interest, obviously, because it's a beautiful car. And that's what I'm aiming to get for it. So what do you think?
Would you take 6?
I can't take 6, but I can meet you in the middle, 6,500. What'd you say?
Yeah.
All right, hold out your hand. You've got yourself a cracking Amazon, and well done you. That is
Awesome.
fantastic.
So cool.
Got one each now.
Yeah.